Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to move past the blocks and create the life you desire, then do we have the miracle show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Joe Vitale, one of my all-time favorite guests. He's the best-selling author of countless books, has starred in numerous movies, including The Secret, and thanks to the Remember process, is now a musician with 15 albums, maybe more, to his credit. He's also the author of a brilliant new book on transformation I can't recommend enough, The Miracle, 6 Steps to Enlightenment. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, the 6 steps to enlightenment to help you least pass your hurdles and live the life you desire. That, plus we'll talk about Ho'oponopono, gull-wing Mercedes, horseshoe bolts and screws, the power of a number 2 pencil, butterflies and magicians, how to Nevilize your goals, why 2 acres is better than 4, why intention is for wimps, gotcha, and why in the world you want to check your lights when you're leaving the valet. So welcome back to the show, Joe. Are you ready to shine?
I am smiling big. I love your little introduction there, and it looks like we're going to be speaking for the next 5 hours. We're going to cover everything you just said. But I'm very excited to see you. Thank you again for having me here. It's always an honor and fun. Thank you.
Well, and thank you and a mighty woohoo for having you back on the show. So before we dive right in, I can't resist. What in the world is strongman training?
Oh, it's literally what it sounds like. It is learning to bend horseshoes, bend screws, bend bolts, bend steel bars in works of art, slamming a nail with your fist through a board. I mean, I actually have one of my first screws right here that I bent.
Oh, wow. That's no small diameter screw.
It is not. And there's no trick to this. I mean, there's some leverage, but it's all muscle, mind power, focus, endurance. It is a thrilling thing to take something that was once solid, that people would think it's unbendable, and bend it. That's strongman training. I'm a baby at it, but it's fun.
Well, you talk about in the book 2 of your goals, if I understand right. One is to take a horseshoe and bend it into a heart.
That's right, yeah.
And then another, a 6-foot steel rod. What do you hope to do with that?
Turn it into a piece of art. You know, I've managed to take a 4-piece steel bar and bend it, which was heroic for me. It was one of those kind of things where it's like, oh my God, I'm Superman. But these guys who do it all the time, they would bend it again and again and again, and you would have this circular 2 or 3 circles there, and they would actually give it away as a piece of art. So I would like to get to that point. It's called scrolling. You take a bar and you scroll it with your bare hands into something that, you know, others might want.
Amazing. I'm going to go onto YouTube. I've got to see some of this stuff in action.
There's lots of it out there, including a couple of videos of me bending nails. So when you look for it, you'll find it.
All right. So going from there, what does this mean? The meaning you give an event is actually the belief that attracted the event.
I'm telling you, that is the most huge insight that anybody can grasp, because the movie The Secret really talked about the law of attraction and introduced it to people. But a lot of people became skeptical and disappointed when it didn't work for them. And I had to explain to people that the way the law of attraction works is that it works on your unconscious beliefs. Not what you're consciously telling yourself, it's what you're unconsciously telling yourself. So if you want to have any real change, you have to go into the unconscious. So how do you do that? Well, the biggest thing you can do is to become aware of your unconscious programming. And one way to do this is with the statement you just gave, is to look at any situation that's going on in your life, especially one you don't particularly like. You know, it's a health problem, a relationship problem, a financial problem, whatever it happens to be. And listen to yourself explain why you have the problem. Because when you talk to somebody else, you're going to say, it's always like this for me. Or the economy really sucks. Or it's because of the political environment. You'll come up with some sort of reason, rationale, belief. That belief is what triggered and created the very manifestation of the thing you're complaining about. So this is you jumped into the deep end with this. I mean, this is the graduate level course in understanding about creating your whole reality. You got to understand you're doing it unconsciously. But how do you find out what's going on in the unconscious? Listen to what you're telling yourself. The belief, the reason that you give for the event that's taking place is actually the belief that attracted it to you. Pause and reflect on that. That's huge.
So how do we start? We listen to the phrases we're telling ourselves. I imagine not only listen, but feel for the emotion that that's coming behind it. How do we really, and is this what you're calling a counter-intention then?
I am. Yeah, thank you. I'm calling all of this counter-intentions. It's what most people don't know anything about, because we're hearing a lot about stating intentions, and that's what you state with your conscious mind. Consciously, I'm going to go work out. I intend to make more sales. I intend to increase my business. Those are all great. Those are all intentions. But if you have what I call counter-intentions in your mind that veto your stated intentions, you won't get your stated intentions, because the unconscious is more powerful. So if you say, I want to have more money, but unconsciously you think money's bad, money corrupts, money is evil, you're not going to attract more money. Or you'll attract just enough for just a little bit, and then you will abort. You will self-sabotage yourself, and you won't have the money you've been saying you want. So yeah, that's what I'm calling counter-intentions. So the way to really look at this is to go to lunch with a friend of yours and tell them what's going on in your life. And listen to yourself explain your behavior, your rationale, your explanations for the things not working out. Because what you explain to that other person is actually your own belief system. It's revealing what you are thinking on an unconscious level. Most of us go to our lunch and we complain about our lives, but we don't have any awareness, any sort of aha or awakening that we are actually revealing our own programming. We just think we're getting it off our chest, and on one way we are, and it feels good, and we have our drink or our food or whatever it happens to be. But we want to be far more conscious. We want to be far more aware, and we want to awaken to what our programming is. So listening to our dialogue as we talk to somebody else, revealing our problems, that's one way to do it.
Beautiful. How do we, I'm thinking maybe we can talk briefly about your story going all the way back to the 70s, because I think if somebody had told you at that time, and I think you used this pretty much exact same term, if they had told you, listen to your limiting beliefs, you created this, you would have socked them.
You are right. That's exactly right. And most of us are like that. We don't want to hear that kind of stuff. We don't want to hear that it's our issue or our fault or our problem. We don't want to hear that at all. But I'm not talking about blame, and I'm not talking about guilt. I am talking about taking responsibility for your life. That's what I'm talking about. And you're right. Back in the 1970s, I was homeless. I went through poverty for 10 years. I was working on myself, but I didn't know about the unconscious beliefs. I didn't know about counter-intentions. So as I tried to move forward, doing visualizations and affirmations and meditations, that was all fine and dandy. It was going in the right direction. But I was carrying a whole lot of baggage. I had a whole lot of luggage in my head that were packaged beliefs that were about deservingness, that were about success, that were about what I thought was possible in my life. And as I slowly, because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have shows like this, there's all kind of wonderful tools that we take for granted today that I didn't have then. So I was doing this by myself, and it took a long time. But the good news is, because of what you're doing, because of the things I hope I'm doing through my books and the movies I appear in, that we are accelerating the process of transformation for people. They can do it like this today. I mean, we've got all kinds of, this is the time of magic and miracles. We're here. This is where all the magic takes place. But it was not overnight for me.
How did you move past the counterintentions? And I'm thinking of one specific event that I think was a miracle. And maybe it was a turning point for you when you said, I can't get a car, I can't get a car, I can't get a car. Somehow you dragged yourself by your own collar to the dealership.
Right.
And you ended up getting a loan when it was clear your counterintentions were saying, your belief system was saying there's no way to get a loan.
Yeah. I'm always impressed with how much research you do. You are one of the, if not the only interviewer I've ever been with who really goes and does the work. I mean, you've gone back and found stories that nobody's asked me about in decades, and I've even forgotten about. So I'm applauding you. So thank you. I'm very impressed, and what a gift that is. You're right. During that time period, I was struggling. I was driving cars that were clunkers, and I remember if the car broke down, my life crushed because I had no money to fix it. And I kept wanting to get a new car. And the thing that was helping me then was I had a coach. There was a fellow, a healer, who was donating his talents to me at that time. And I desperately needed it. He saw something in me that he wanted to nourish. And he was the one who was encouraging me to look at my beliefs about deservingness, to look at my beliefs about possibility, look at my beliefs about money. In my mind, I had a very narrow vision. It's like, I only got so much money here. Cars cost a lot more than that. I have no credit. So my mind was fixed on lack and limitation. And he was tapping at the walls, trying to get me to lower all of that. And slowly over time, I did. And then because of his encouragement, I think it's really important that we have somebody who believes in us. And that's what he was doing for me at the time. I went to the dealership. And Saturn cars were the ones I were most excited about. And they had a sporty Saturn there. It was gold color. And I remember thinking, oh, my God, what a statement of abundance to be in a gold Saturn brand new automobile. It would be the first in my entire life. Well, I also know I had to go through the motions. I had to take action. So I went there and I filled out all the forms, thinking to myself, man, they're not gonna give me a car. And they even wanted a deposit. And they even said, all you have to do, you can even put $1 down, just $1. And I said, this isn't even going to work. I didn't even put the dollar down. I was so convinced this is just fool's play. But I was going through the theatrics of it. When I was done, I went back home and I got a phone call from the Saturn dealership. And it said, you've been approved for the loan. Even now, as I think about it, I'm going, how is that possible? I got approved for the loan, and I remember saying, are you sure you're looking at my file? My name's Joe Vitale. Are you looking at the right application? And they laughed, and they said, yeah, we're cleaning up your car now. You can come get it. I was freaking blown away. And then I remember thinking to myself, how am I going to make payments for the next 4 years or 3 years, whatever it was? And then I remembered, and this is a great prosperity exercise for everybody listening, I didn't have to make payments for the next 4 years. I had to make one payment.
Yes.
When it came due. And then after that, the universe and me and everybody else are going to collide, and we're going to make the next payment. And son of a gun, I did. And today I live with a car collection.
So how are you liking your gull wing then?
Thank you, the gull wing. I've been in love with the Mercedes gull wing car. I think it's the most amazing car in history. The very famous one that was first made in 1955, Mercedes SL 300 gull wing with the gull wing doors, literally gull wing doors. Those cars are amazing, and those cars sell, if they're running today, minimum of $1 million. Minimum. And I've had it on my vision board, but one day I was doing a meditation, and in that meditation, the great something, as I call it, the great something, whispered in my ear, go look on eBay. I'm like, yeah, right. A Mercedes gull wing is going to be on eBay? Well, there was a Mercedes gull wing on eBay, a replica, not the original, but a replica. And in many ways, the replica is far better. For one thing, it's $980,000 cheaper. That's a
good starting point right there.
That's a starting point. Plus, the original gull wing from 55 didn't have air conditioning in it. And it didn't have windows that rolled down. There's actually pictures of people like Clark Gable stopped and they have their doors open so they can breathe. That's so amazing. So anyway, the replica has air conditioning, and it has roll-down windows, and it has modern parts, and it doesn't cost $1 million. And the great something, as I call it, led me to it. And in far many ways, it's better than what I wanted, which is what I tell people. When you want to go for something, state your intention and always end it with this or something better.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's something that I teach my coaching clients as well, because it leaves the space.
Right.
Rather than you being stuck on what you want.
Exactly right. Yeah, when we come from our ego, we think we know the world of possibilities. But our ego doesn't know it. The great divine, the great something, whatever you want to call the universe, it has the ability to see all possibilities. So I want to go and say, you know what, I've done some research and I think the gull wing is great for me, so that's what I want. But this or something better opens the door and the windows and the possibility for truly something better. Yeah.
What is it you call inspired intention?
Yeah, I've been saying intentions are for wimps. So, as much as I like intentions and as much as I think intentions are better than being a victim and just rolling with what occurs in life, what's better than intentions are actually to have inspiration. Inspiration is coming from, again, I keep calling it the great something. I have a new album coming out. It's titled The Great Somethings. So the great something is going to give me, much like when I say this or something better with an intention, the great something can inspire me with something that I hadn't even thought about before, something bigger than what my mind had wanted me to do. So an intention is great because it moves you in the positive direction of where you want to go. It aligns your body and mind to go in a particular direction. But an inspired intention is when the intention actually comes from a higher power. It comes from the divine, the great something. And it gives you something that'll probably scare you a little bit, but excite you a lot. And that scared, excited balance, that little seesaw, that's a great place to be. Oh, is that a great? That's where the gusto of life is. That's where the enthusiasm and the dynamism and all of that come. And the enthusiasm of life is when you follow the inspiration. An inspired intention is better than an ego intention.
How was it recording your first album?
My first album?
Yes.
It was scary and exhilarating. I've often said that the very first album, which was called Strut, was made on adrenaline. Because I was a newbie going into the studio, and my drummer is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's got the same name as me, but he plays for Joe Walsh and Neil Young and all these legends. Here he is coming to play with my first album. And my bass player plays with Robert Plant and the Dixie Chicks. These guys are famous. These guys have decades of experience. So when I went in, I was ready and I was inspired, but I was admittedly nervous. And so there was a lot of adrenaline there, but I think the adrenaline gave it fire. I think it gave it life. It gave this raw energy that you feel when you listen to it today. Yeah,
Awesome.
it was a hoot.
So there's so much I want to dive into. I want to hit one of the key blocks here that I hear a lot of people saying, I've even had my coaching clients saying, which is, what do I do about my spouse? I really believe this, and I'm working to intend, but I keep hitting this where they're saying, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well, I like that you always go for the deep end of understanding. And so what I want to do is honor that and give you my deep end explanation of that.
Thank you.
I find that, trying to find the right words to say this, our relationships are essentially mirrors. And so what these people are saying that sounds like criticism, they're voicing what you believe inside yourself. And I'm pausing for that to sink in. So if somebody is in your coaching program or they're reading my books and they're doing all these wonderful things for themselves, but their spouse is every now and then clipping at their heels and snipping at them and saying something critical, they need to look at that from the perspective of their spouse is speaking their internal belief system. The spouse is actually voicing what they secretly still believe inside themselves. And I've seen this all the time because as soon as somebody owns that and starts to question the idea that, wow, they say that this is, I can't even make up an example of what somebody is criticizing them for because it's out of my head anymore. It's not there. I can't even make it up. But if somebody is saying something critical about what a person is doing, they got to pause and ask themselves, is it true? Do I believe that on some level? And then question the belief. Because when you question the belief, now you can dismantle it. Now you can unwire it. You can deprogram yourself. And what I have found is that when you do that internal work, the spouse either quits saying anything altogether or actually joins forces with you and starts to say, what are you doing? I noticed that you're making these changes. What are you reading? What are you watching? What are you doing? But it's not about changing them. I think that's really the punchline. It's not about changing anybody in the outer. I actually come from the frame of mind that there isn't anybody on the outer. It's all a freaking illusion. It's all projections out of our own mind. We are projecting everything out there. It looks real. You look real. You know, I probably look real to you. But we're internally experiencing everything. It's all taking place inside. So if the spouse says something critical, it's not the spouse. It is a reflection of your belief system being spoken by that mirror image. So instead of saying, shut up, you want to say, thank you. And then look within to find out, do I believe that? And what can I do to change it?
So let's go on we're going to pull the string of this sweater and follow that line of thinking. And this was a mind blower. I knew of him. I knew of his technique, but I didn't grasp this at the soul level you're talking about now. Dr. E. Haleakala, Hugh Len, Ho'oponopono, and him healing things on the inside for others.
Yes, yes. That is so, I got chills just even having you bring that up. Ho'oponopono is the spiritual technique that he has been using. And I wrote about it in a couple books. The first book was Zero Limits, which, man, has been exploded all over the world. And then a sequel called At Zero. And both of those books tell the true story of this crazy Hawaiian therapist who helped heal an entire ward of mentally ill criminals. These were throwaways. They were shackled. They were sedated. And he was called in almost like a last resort. They had to have somebody on staff in order to get the funding from the state. And he agreed, but he said, I want to do my own method. And his method had nothing to do with traditional therapy. It had nothing to do with interpersonal relations. What he did was look at their charts. And as he looked at their charts, he would feel whatever he's feeling inside themselves. The charts were actually stimulating things in him. And what he did was change what he was feeling. He changed the internal, which is what we've been talking about here with the spousal comments. So he didn't try to go out there and change inmates. He looked at them through the files, felt what he was feeling, rage, embarrassment, whatever it happened to be, and he did Ho'oponopono, which is a very simple process. It's basically 4 phrases. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. That's it. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. But you're saying it internally, not to anybody else. You say it internally to your connection to the great something. Some people will say God, somebody will say universe, somebody will say higher power, Gaia, nature, whatever you want to call it. But it's a kind of petition to our connection to all that is. And you're saying, I don't know where this belief came from. I don't know what caused this attraction in my life. I don't know where all of this programming has come from. But please forgive me. I'm sorry. Thank you. I love you. It's a kind of prayer. It's a kind of song, psalm, whatever you want to call it. But by using it over a couple of years, those mentally ill, formerly shackled and sedated inmates were released as healed. So I wrote about it in those 2 books. I've been practicing it for over 11 years now. And people from all over the world know about Ho'oponopono and have been using it. And it's the simplest, easiest meditation because you can do it anywhere, anytime, don't have to pay anybody. I mean, it's just brilliant.
I've used it for a lot of healing. I've recommended it for a lot of healing work. I never thought about it, and now I'm both in a place of, oddly enough, the ego wants to kick itself, going, why haven't you done it for this other purpose before? And going, wait a sec, you just learned about this. This is awesome. Like, I have a check in front of us, kind of like a, what's his name? Jim Carrey had his $10 million check for services rendered. I've got my beautiful check for services rendered here. And I never thought about the idea until I read your book today, although I'm looking at the check and I'm woohooing with my check all the time, that I could be doing Ho'oponopono with this.
Yes, absolutely yes. Yeah, and most people don't actually think of it in those terms. Most people use Ho'oponopono for problems. They don't use it for intentions. And this is another deep insight because it's great to use it for problems. I mean, if people are dealing with health, finances, relationships, you name it, whatever the problem is, go ahead and feel the ache that you have inside, whatever it is for that issue, and say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, really feeling it as you're communicating to the great something. But you can also do it for your inspired intentions. If you are intending to increase your sales or have your soulmate show up in your life, or the bigger house or the better car or whatever it happens to be, yeah, look at your check. And then inside yourself say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of cleaning and deleting conscious and unconscious blocks to having what you say you want. And that's the power of Ho'oponopono. You don't even have to know what the unconscious blocks are. You just have to know, well, I want this check and I don't have it right now, so maybe there's something in me preventing it from being in my life. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Let's go from there. Let's talk a little bit maybe about either the reticular activation system or specifically the step of clearing.
Yeah, well, both are important. In many ways, I think clearing is the most important thing for us to have, do, or be what we want. And in many ways, we've been talking about that, because when I say clearing, I'm talking about clearing the counter intentions. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about clearing the unconscious beliefs. I'm talking about clearing anything that's within us to prevent us from having, doing, or being what we want. I really think that there are no limits in life. I don't know that even the sky is the limit. I think that's a belief. It's a cliche. It's a nice thing to say, but it's not true. And so if we experience any sort of blocks or limitations, they are clues to our beliefs. And what we want to do is clear those beliefs. So clearing is a big step. I've written different books about it and have big sections in the new book that's out right now. But that's a really important step, clearing. We use Ho'oponopono for clearing. We use belief work for clearing. We use coaching for clearing. It is the most important step, and it is the one almost nobody knows about, because they just focus on, here's what I want, bring it to me. They just watch The Secret and think all I have to do is sit down and visualize it, and the doorbell will ring and somebody will give it to me, whatever it happens to be.
So when you get that belief, when you're faced with that mirror, that talk with that friend, that actually awareness of stepping back and hearing yourself talking with your spouse and what's coming out, we can grab the Ho'oponopono and go after it. What are some other tools in the shed that we want to get to with the right term be, to Neville'ize it?
Well, Nevilleizing is also, you're leading me right into one of my favorite topics here. Gosh, it's so exciting to talk to you, because you've read my book. You read the most recent book. You know my material. You know me. So, again, I applaud you, and I'm flattered to be here. So, Nevilleizing. I love Nevilleizing. Nevilleizing is a coined word, and it's referring to Neville Goddard. Mm-hmm. Most people think of him as Neville, Neville, I think. But Neville talked about not just visualizing what you're wanting, but to actually embody it. To go to the end result where you already have what you want to have, do, or be. There's nothing wrong with imagery. There's nothing wrong with visualization. These are all powerful tools, and they're proven to work. But Neville went a step further. Neville said, instead of visualizing the car, I'm a car guy, so I'm going to use that as an example, visualizing the car that you want being in your house in 2 months or in 2 weeks or tomorrow, visualize that you drove it this morning. And you got your keys right here in the drawer. You can pull them up. And you're telling people about it. And how great would that feel to know that you got the car last week or yesterday, and you went for a drive this morning, and you got it washed, and it is beautiful. And you are so happy to have this car. It's an emotional vehicle for you. It is representing success and manifestation. So Neville said, feel it as if it's already real. In fact, I have some autographed books by him, and he would sign them. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, which is going exactly where we want to go. So it's a way of clearing, because you bypass all of the things that were blocking you. Instead of sitting there saying, well, how am I going to get a car? Or I don't even know what kind of car. Or maybe you do, but you're visualizing it off in the distance. Neville would say, no, come from the being of it. Come from the having of it. Not from the lack, not from the want, not from the desire, but it already being fulfilled. It's beautiful. I love it. Never lies. Never lies.
Woohoo!
It's one of my favorite things.
So when we talk about coming from that being place, maybe we should dive into Einstein's secret here and why we can't solve the problem from the same level of thinking that created it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I was going to say guilty, but I haven't been guilty. I've been unconscious and done this myself, where you try to solve problems in your life, not realizing that the way you're trying to solve them is with the very same consciousness and mindset that created the problem to begin with. So mentally, we have to transcend where we're at. Mentally, we have to become more awake. Mm-hmm. Now, I've talked about 4 stages of awakening, and it's in the new book. Most of us were born into victimhood. If we're lucky, at some point we see The Secret, or we watch your show. Somebody comes across your show for the very first time, and this can trigger an awakening. Suddenly, they're now leaving victimhood, and they're in empowerment. And empowerment is juicy. Empowerment is a zinger, because now you feel like you're captain of the universe, and you can have, do, or be anything at all. But there's still 2 more stages of awakening. The third one is surrender. And surrender doesn't mean giving up. Surrender means that there's a higher power that you're part of, that you're not God. You are a God, but you are part of the great something. And this is where you surrender to inspiration. You surrender to the things that are offered to you through intuition and opportunities. You surrender. You still have intentions. You still have awakened. You still are empowered. But now you have even more power because you've become an ally with the great something, which was there all along. Only now you know it. Then there's the 4th stage, which is actually enlightenment or awakening. That comes by grace. You can't make that happen because then you're coming from your ego trying to become a better ego. And what you have to do is actually meditate, prepare, do all the right things, and grace will bring enlightenment or awakening if it chooses to. So we want to be aware of all of these different steps as we go through life.
If I back you up for a minute, thank you for sharing on that. Let's go back to surrender, because this is a toughie for people, and people don't understand surrender and co-creation and how they go together.
Yeah. So what you're doing with surrender is still requesting how your life would like to play out. Mm-hmm. For example, I've mentioned that I'm creating another album. It's called The Great Something. And so a few months ago, I got inspired to do another one. I hadn't made an album in a couple of years. I was taking some time off. I was writing books, traveling, blah, blah, blah. So I decided I want to make another album because inspiration came and nudged me. First of all, where did the inspiration come from? So to me, inspiration comes as a gift from that greater something. If I was coming just from me, I might have, from an ego standpoint, said, "Hey, I want to make an album because I don't know, I want to brag about it." But it didn't come from that place. It came from some place deeper and vaster. And so that came in, and what my job is to agree to it, to say yes. I have free will, which means I could say no. I don't want to do that. But what I've learned, one of the great lessons in life is my life is smooth and wonderful when I say yes. When I say no to the inspirations, it seems like life gets a little rockier. It's like, man, the universe is trying to help me out, and here I am egotistically saying, no, I don't want to do that. So the very first thing is the inspiration comes, I realize it's coming from this great something, and I surrender to it. But my surrendering to it is surrendering to something big and powerful. The great something has now got life. The great something is going to be 10 self-help songs. And here's where it gets even more magical. And this is what happens with everybody. You can't predict how it's going to unfold. I already got my band that I referred to earlier, drummer, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, bass player, famous, all of this. But along the way, I got a notice one day by email that Melissa Etheridge, who I've been a fan of for 25 years, was doing a fundraiser for her next album. And they were the typical things, like you can get a signed CD, you can get a T-shirt. But I kept reading, and you can have a private 2-hour songwriting lesson with her. And I went,
hello.
Yeah. It was like, oh my God, oh my great something. And I did. I seized the moment. I got that. And in November, I went to her house. I went to her, I sat beside her in the kitchen with my songbook there. I mean, I've got it right over here. And
Were you
she
like a
signed
kid in a
it.
candy store?
Oh, I was starstruck, but still alert enough to know this is a gift. I mean, this is the great something inspiring me and leading me to her. And because I was a fan for 20 some years, I mean, I'm soaking all of this up, but I also went prepared. I had my questions. I wanted to know about singing. I wanted to know about songwriting. Long story short, I refer to that meeting with her in one way or another every single day. And when I went into the studio only 2 weeks ago to record The Great Something, the band was blown away because they said the songs were, I can't find the words to say how elevated and improved they are. They are far better, far more impactful, far more memorable. My singing was at a stage and at a level that I had never even touched before. And my confidence in the recording studio was, I was fearless. I got all of this from my time with Melissa. I got my time with Melissa because I saw an opportunity that came from The Great Something. It wasn't on anybody's list. I didn't ask for this, but it showed up. This is what happens when we surrender. We're not surrendering our freedom of choice. We're not surrendering our decision-making process through life, but what we're doing is aligning ourselves with something better. That is surrender.
You used an important word a minute ago here, fearlessness.
Yes.
When inspiration often comes up, it's not asking us to play life small.
Right.
What do we do when we hear the oh crap moment?
So I'm going to go back to Melissa Etheridge because, first of all, when I was there, I said, can I record all of this? And she said, yes. She said, I'm fearless. And I remembered it. I'm fearless. And then when I was in her home studio, and she actually had me sing for her, which you have to imagine what that was like. It's like Frank Sinatra or Elvis or somebody saying, hey boy, come here, sing for me. But I did. And I saw on her wall that she had a cover from a DVD of a concert she gave, and it was called Fearless and Alone. Mm-hmm. And I commented on it, and I said, that's one of my favorite shows that you've all ever done. And she said, oh, I was scared to do it. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, I was scared. She said, but I felt the fear and did it anyway, which is the title of a great book that came out decades ago. Feel the fear and do it anyway. When she asked me to sing, I had a rush of fear. Felt the fear and did it anyway. When I went into the studio, as you mentioned, the very first time for the very first album, felt a lot of fear. Felt the fear and did it anyway. So there's a couple things we can do with fear. One is we can use it as a rocket ship. We can use the energy of fear, strap ourselves to it, and actually let it shoot us forward, whether it's to go on stage, whether it's to open a business, whether it's to write the book, do whatever it is that we think is fearsome. And the other thing that we want to look at is to actually look to see, is there something to be afraid of? Because when we ask that question, we will almost certainly hear, no, there isn't anything to be afraid of. The universe isn't asking you to go stand in traffic. You know, the universe isn't asking you to jump out of an airplane without a chute. The universe is typically asking us to stretch. And I think that's what we're being asked to do. We're not being asked to stretch till we break, but we're being asked to stretch in a way that might feel uncomfortable. And the only reason it's uncomfortable is we haven't done it before. That's it. It doesn't mean don't do it. So we want to look around, make sure, are we safe? Are we actually going to do something like sing in front of Melissa Etheridge? Is there anything scary about that? No. And if I didn't do it, how would I feel? Oh, my God, I'd be regretting it to my deathbed. So we want to feel the fear and do it anyway. At the same time, look around, make sure we're crossing traffic at the right point. You know, the light's green, let's go. And we'll be fine.
I like it. There's something you talk about in the book about you've interviewed in the past a billionaire who talked about failure as being nothing more than feedback.
Yeah, it was a remarkable conversation because he said, I learned something really significant about failure. I'm like, what did you learn? I got to know that. What did you learn about failure? And he said, nothing bad happens. The world forgets. The world forgives. The only person that dwells on it is you. And he says, if you look at it as feedback, now you have data that tells you what you were trying may not have worked. Can you adjust what you were doing? Can you try something a little different? Maybe it was the wrong time, the wrong day, the wrong name. Who knows? But it's not failure. It's feedback. It's data. And realizing nothing bad happens to you really makes it more of a fun kind of a experience. Yeah, you tried something. You didn't get what you wanted, but what did you get? Maybe that was actually something better. Maybe it's leading to something that's huge that you didn't predict. It's feedback.
I love it. Speaking of feedback and getting what you didn't expect, what happened when people bought the property next to you?
We live out in the country, in central Texas, and I'm in my wonderful office, and there's a couple acres right out my window beside me. And there was a couple who bought it 10 some years ago. And they'd come up once a year and tell me they're going to build their house on it. And I just kept praying, well, I hope it's not anytime soon. 10 years go by, and suddenly they do start building their house. They've got construction people over there. They got trees being marked to be cut down. And boy, I wasn't depressed, but I was discouraged because I thought, I'm going to listen to construction right out this window for the next year, and then I'll have neighbors. And so I did Ho'oponopono.
Yeah.
I was looking for my solution, and I thought, well, clearly I'm not at peace about this, and I want to be at peace. So I'm doing, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Inside myself, that's my trigger over there is the land, but it's all triggered in here. So I get to a place of peace. And I was telling my wife about it, and so she went online to find out what property is selling for in the neighborhood because she wanted to make another offer to these people to buy their land. And I had tried that in the past, and they said they didn't want to sell. And my wife came back and said, well, there's 4 acres down the street, and it's selling for such and such. Well, inspiration hit at that moment because what she was telling me wasn't really what was relevant. What she was telling me that I read into was that there was property available down the street, 4 acres. And I got this wild idea that only could have come from me doing my cleaning, clearing, the Ho'oponopono, and hearing inspiration and then acting on inspiration. And so I called the realtor for the 4 acres down the street, and I said, look, if you're really good, I can get you 2 sales with 1 phone call. Well, she was listening at that point. And I said, I got a neighbor here. He has 2 acres they're about to build. Tell him I will buy the 2 acres for the price of the 4 acres down the street. She gets 2 sales that are done. Mm-hmm. Those people will just have to go down the street. They want to be in this neighborhood, but just go down the street and you will have 4 acres and I will get the 2 acres of my oasis and peace of mind. Long story short, they went for it. They built their house down the street. I never see them, never hear from them. I put a walking trail on the acres over here, and my peace and quiet, which is worth $1 million to me, remains.
Woohoo!
Yes.
What advice, what words of wisdom would you give parents for their kids today to help them on this path?
I'm not a parent, but I certainly see parents. I had dinner with a couple last night, and they have a 4-year-old. And so I'm around them. But what everybody needs to remember is that the kids are modeling you. The kids are modeling you. So you want to demonstrate inspiration. You want to walk the talk that teaches them about positivity, that teaches them about intentions and inspirations and taking action on ideas and getting up when you fall and turning failure into feedback. All of these principles we're talking about, you just need to remember that you're being watched. It may not seem like it because they're looking at the coloring book or they're looking at TV, but no, they're watching and they're modeling the behavior of you. So my best advice is walk the talk that you want to be the best example of.
Woohoo! On that note, question we like to ask all our guests toward the end, what personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
So many things. I'm in my office right now and I'm surrounded by books. I think I'm a book nerd and I love being among books. Even yesterday before that dinner and before going into the studio, I went in Barnes & Noble and just kind of roamed around. I had coffee and I just feel, I don't know, there's my friends are there. My friends, all the books of the world are there. And I think books have the wisdom of the world. Books have personality. The authors might be gone, but they kind of live and breathe through the books. So I would just say right now, I would say books. In fact, here's one called Play Bigger. I have nothing to do with this, but I just thought, well, what a great little title and what a great thing to tell everybody that's watching. Play bigger.
Awesome. And if we go back in time, was it the Houston Library that really got you going and all of the books you had surrounded yourself with?
I would say it was the Niles McKinley Library in Niles, Ohio, because I grew up in northeastern Ohio. I was born and raised in Niles, Ohio. And Niles still has one of the biggest and best memorial libraries. William McKinley, 25th president, was born in Niles. They have a great shrine to him, but they have a wonderful bookstore. And I used to walk 1.5 miles in all kinds of weather from the house to that library. And in that library, I devoured books. I devoured them. You know, we had the old card system. You'd have to go walk over and look through all the different cards and then go hunting for the book. I mean, I would say in fact, I'm going to do a book signing there in a couple months just to kind of say thank you. Thank you for being there. Thank you for whoever built this and maintains it. So, yeah.
It's awesome. And just hearing you flip that card, the Dewey Decimal System, it was such a tactile experience.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah, I remember it well.
Speaking of books, where can people go to find your beautiful book and to find out more? And everyone, I want to go on the record, I love this book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I am proud of this. It's called The Miracle 6 Steps to Enlightenment. There is the printed version, which I'm holding up here. Mm-hmm. There is an audio version. There is a Kindle version. It has already become a bestseller on Kindle and self-help, spiritual, something like that. So obviously Amazon is the #1 place to get it. But I also have this cool offer going on. If you go to themiraclebook.info, you'll see how you can get $6,300 in real bonuses for getting at least one copy of the book in paper, Kindle, or audio. But themiraclebook.info explains the whole thing. And these are real world, real value bonuses, including one is a 6-part video training I did called The Beginner's Guide to Miracles. The Beginner's Guide to Miracles. It's free, and all the other $6,000 worth of bonuses are free. Themiraclebook.info.
Fantastic. And if you're driving down the road and you didn't catch the miraclebook.info, come on over to inspirenationshow.com and we'll get you over to Joe and the bonuses as well. This has been an awesome interview. Before we dive into a brief meditation, do you have any last words of wisdom you'd want to share with people?
Last words. It's really important that people follow their passion. I found that the turning point in my own life with that rocky beginning and homelessness and poverty and all that was when I really focused on what is my contribution to the world? What is my life mission? What is my life calling? Some people call it passion. Some people could call it your dream. It's under different words. But when you hone into that and you start fumbling your way to follow it, even when you don't know how it's going to play out, and even if there's no guarantees, which there aren't anyway, your life will take on more gusto, more magic, more enthusiasm, more doors will open, more windows will open, more of a escalator kind of ride through life will take place. So following your passion is really what's key.
Woohoo!
Yes.
So did you have a meditation you wouldn't mind sharing with us then?
Yeah, I can do a very short one. It's also in the book, The Miracle, but I can lead people through it right now fairly quickly.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
And this can be a clearing meditation. What we'll do is I'll ask people to focus on something they'd like to have, do, or be in their life, something they've been wanting, and that could be anything, more money, relationship, health, house, car, fill in the blank, even spirituality. It doesn't have to be a concrete material thing, just something that they've been wanting to have, but they haven't attracted it just yet. And so what I would ask everybody to do is to relax. And, of course, if they're listening driving, you don't want to close your eyes. You can do this meditation later. Stay focused on whatever is on the road. Otherwise, we want to close our eyes. And otherwise, we want to take those deep breaths that help us relax. That big breath in. A nice sigh when we release it. And take another one, deep breath in. And it feels good just to let go. It feels good just to relax. And you can relax deeper either right now or in a moment. Just kind of settle into your chair or your bed or wherever you happen to be. And mentally, in your mind, in your mind's eye, you want to see yourself as a child. Do your best to conjure up the image of yourself as about 5 years old. And your child is looking up at you, smiling, eyes wide and happy. And you want to really tell the child that you love the child. You can say in your mind, I truly love you. I love you just the way you are. And you might even hug the child. Maybe even get on your knees and get really close and just let the child hug you and you hug the child. That little child is alive in all of us. We're making peace with the child. You're letting the child know that you love the child with no reservations at all. Total acceptance. And you might ask the child if he or she needs anything. Does the child want to hear something from you? And listen attentively. And if you can, tell the child what it's asking to hear. Now really look into the child's eyes. The child looks right into yours, and you look right into the child's, and you realize that your souls are the same. You are sharing this spirit that you can see through the windows of the eyes. And again, you want to say, I love you, totally and unconditionally. Hug the child. Be at peace. Know that that child is integrated in you with total clearing and peace and love. And then bring your attention back to this current reality, this current moment. You're back in your body, and you're in your room, or wherever you are, sitting or laying. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Take a deep breath, and release it with gratitude. It feels great to integrate the child with total love.
Woohoo! Awesome, awesome, awesome. And so important.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Joe. This has been fantastic, a treat, a joy, and you are bringing such tremendous light to the world. When is it? A couple months you're recording again?
No, I just recorded, so it'll be out in a couple months. The Great Something, the new album, will be out in a couple months.
Gonna look for it.
Thank you. Thank you for the honor of being here. You're doing great work in the world, so it's a great treat for me to be part of it. Godspeed to you and all the people who watch you and listen to you.
Thank you so much. Crank it up for the finish for everyone out there. This is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the miracle, and take your own 6 steps to enlightenment, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you, Joe.
Oh, thank you. That was awesome. Awesome. Great questions, great energy, great interaction. And I truly am impressed with how much research you do and how focused and present you are. So you are a peach. Thanks.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!